Bikini Atoll, a remote South Pacific paradise, lost in time. Then, in 1946, this faraway coral atoll became a nuclear test site. Over the next 12 years, 23 atomic tests wiped out every living thing for miles around. 60 years later, Bikini is still radioactive.
I don't want to spend too much time here.
But life abounds in unexpected ways.
They're keyed in, they know that we're here.
The sharks are back. But how is a mystery. Reef sharks don't migrate. So where did they come from? And how did they get here? Ashlyn and Philippe Cousteau are on an expedition to solve the mystery of Bikini's nuclear sharks.
Where's Bikini from where we are right now?
Philippe Cousteau has been diving the world's oceans since he was a child. But this is his first journey to the Marshall Islands.
Exploring the oceans is a passion I inherited from my grandfather, Jacques Cousteau, and my father, Philippe Sr., both renowned adventurers and explorers. Inspired by them, my wife Ashlyn and I are traveling to one of the last truly wild places on the planet.
Bikini Atoll lies 2,600 miles southwest from Hawaii. It's part of a tiny chain of 29 low-lying islands known as the Marshall Islands. As remote as it gets. The report is these islands are teeming with reef sharks. And the team is on its way to find out if that's true. Adult gray reef sharks are 4 to 6 feet long. They're compact, agile, and aggressive. Marine biologist Luke Tipple has brought 20 satellite tags to attach to the reef sharks. He hopes the sharks themselves will answer the question of where they came from.
This whole expedition really is unprecedented. I mean, the amount of shark research that's been done in the Marshall Islands is fairly limited.
The team will start tagging sharks at Bikini, then go to Rongelap Atoll, well within the fallout area, and finally to Likiap Atoll, just beyond the nuclear test zone.
After 2 long days at sea, we finally make landfall at Bikini Atoll. It's beautiful, but hidden in the sand are residual radioactive elements that still contaminate plant and animal life.
The nuclear test created 5 craters. The largest, called Bravo, is more than 200 feet deep.
So, Luke, what do we know about what happened to these sharks under the water after that huge Bravo blast?
We know that at the actual blast sites themselves, sharks were wiped out. Nothing really survived those actual blasts.
After the blasts, no sharks were left to reproduce. And since reef sharks are considered non-migratory, they wouldn't have swum here either. By rights, there shouldn't be any sharks here at all.
So we're curious to see, number one, if sharks are even at those blast sites, if it's still off limits for them, if they're even using it. Baseline stuff that we just don't have data for.
The first dive will be exploratory to see what's inside the Bravo crater. Underwater scooters will help the team cover more ground more quickly across the mile-wide hole.
Inside, it's completely barren. No reef left. We only see coral rubble, a few remoras, and no sharks at all. We're careful to avoid stirring up the bottom because of radiation buried in the sand. The quiet emptiness hides a violent history.
In the years after World War II, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union started an arms race. The U.S. tested their bombs here at Bikini. From 1946 to 1958, the atoll was flattened by 23 atomic blasts. Castle Bravo was the largest thermonuclear bomb ever detonated by the United States. The explosion was 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb that leveled Hiroshima and generated temperatures hotter than the sun. 4-mile-wide fireball vaporized 3 islands and every living thing on them. People living 125 miles away were exposed to lethal radioactive fallout. This is where the team is diving. Castle Bravo, Ground Zero. And they find nothing.
We went down, we hit about 160 feet, just nothing and more and nothing. No sharks here.
The dozen remora were following us pretty much the entire dive, and they tend to latch onto larger fish like sharks. In fact, they were following us, which I've never seen before. Eerie place.
No sharks in the crater, so the team heads across the lagoon to see if they can find the sharks they've heard so much about.
We get 2 opportunities to get data. One is when the shark breaks the surface. Typically, these reef sharks won't do that all that much unless they're coming up next to a boat. So the most likely scenario is this hangs out underwater for 7 months. It uses both those pieces of data to determine the GPS location.
The tags will collect data for 7 months, then pop off, float to the surface, and transmit. That data will draw a clear map of where the sharks go. A strange graveyard lies on the bottom of Bikini Lagoon. Military observers wanted to measure the blast impact on large warships. So in 1946, the aircraft carrier USS Saratoga was blasted to the bottom of the lagoon. Some sharks may live in the wreck.
So we just moored up on the USS Saratoga. That's the second aircraft carrier.
Dive Master Brian Kirk knows the Saratoga well.
Guns, bombs, ammunition, airplanes.
It took 2 bombs to take her down.
2 bombs to take her down, and she only sunk reluctantly. And they're still explosive, so
So no touching.
no touching,
No
just
touching.
look.
The old warship has been submerged for 70 years. The Saratoga is still loaded with undetonated bombs. Even in death, she remains extremely dangerous.
The bridge of the Saratoga is covered in corals, transformed into a living, vibrant reef. We search the entire wreck and don't spot a single shark. I'm beginning to wonder if they exist here at all. Out of nowhere, a white-tip shark. Slender and agile, white-tips can squeeze through small reef crevices to catch prey like octopus and crabs. Luke will handle the tagging. He's got years of experience tagging sharks without injuring them. Our first tag is in. Another white tip. But the shark is too quick. We search another 45 minutes, but don't see any more sharks.
There's some big white tips on that wreck.
There are some big ones, yeah. It's at least 2. And you got one of them.
Yeah, I tagged one, about 5 feet long. At least we know where they're hanging now. You know, all hanging out in that sunken depression, like they're living in the wreck.
All in all, a successful dive. But we've got to tag a lot more sharks to have any chance of explaining how they got to Bikini.
Coming up,
We've got sharks just approaching the boat. They're keyed in, they know that we're here.
the team finds the sharks they've been looking for. Maybe too many. The expedition heads around the western tip of Bikini Atoll to a deep gap in the reef called Shark Pass. The tidal current runs hard and draws in all kinds of marine life, including hundreds of sharks. It's one of the largest concentrations of reef sharks on the planet.
Our goal is to attach as many satellite tags as we can, but the prospect of diving with so many sharks that have no fear of humans is a little nerve-wracking.
If a shark is threatening, if it's posturing at you, specifically look for the pectoral fins down, look for an arched back, look for any type of like snapping or head twisting movements. Those are all signs of aggression, and they pack hunt. Once one starts doing it, several will start doing it.
Gray reef sharks are small, but fast and agile. They will attack divers if they feel threatened. The team's only protection? Shark sticks.
Watch each other's backs, okay?
Got it.
Okay, who's ready to go? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Our goal is to tag at least 2 sharks on this dive. After years of nuclear testing, you'd think this place would be dead. But the reef here in Shark Pass is full of life. With healthy corals, schools of yellowtail fusiliers, and more sharks than I can count. The reef sharks here are the biggest we've seen yet, and they're very curious. Luke tags a 4-footer. They move in a pack as they hunt. It's a tactic gray reefs have developed to take down prey. As Ashlyn and I move closer, the sharks get bolder. Unlike big ocean-going sharks, gray reefs are vulnerable in open water to larger predators. They need the reef for food and protection. The nearest island is Rongelap Atoll. We wonder if some of these sharks could have swum the 125 miles from Rongelap to Bikini. If the data from the tags indicates they are capable of such a journey, our research could redefine what we know about reef sharks.
Down there, and at one point I was looking around, and it was just sharks everywhere, all around us. Nearly all the sharks we saw were female gray reefs. Begging the question, where are the males? And what other species inhabit these waters? The next morning, we have a plan to find out.
All right, so we can line that up.
We create a shark magnet out of 2 40-pound yellowfin tunas that we rig up with cameras.
I think she may have done this before.
We'll capture feeding activity, get an up-close look at shark behavior, and see if there are any other species out there besides reef sharks. We have 4 cameras actually on our 2 fish.
What we hope to see afterwards is the bait's perspective.
You want to flip it?
We want to kind of get in the shark's mind and see what's going on there. I'd like to get some tags on those animals so we get an opportunity to learn how they use the reef and how they use the atoll.
And we also are going to take note of gender, because we've seen a lot of females. We haven't seen a lot of males.
You know, I really want to understand where the males are going. They might be here at night. They might be off the shelf. We're not really sure.
This is the first time a frenzy cam has been deployed here, because he'll be closer to the action. Our photographer Johnny suits up in chainmail.
Shark sticks? 3, 2, 1, go.
Drop! Whole thing goes down! No sharks visual topside, over.
pounds of tuna gone.
It took them a second, right? They kind of circled it for a minute. One bumped,
Yeah,
bumped,
Gonna be
and then when it was off,
Once the frenzy was on, they came in like missiles from all around. So,
so yeah, I'd say maybe 90 seconds from first bump to clean par.
With the frenzy cam, we were able to slow the footage down, which revealed there was a clear pecking order of who eats first. The largest dominant sharks take the first bites, with smaller sharks moving in as they can. And every one is female.
Coming up, 60 years after nuclear testing, just how radioactive is Bikini Atoll? Philippe and Ashlyn head to ground zero to find out.
And I don't want to spend too much time here.
60 years ago, nuclear blast destroyed Bikini's reefs. Yet today, you'd never know it.
The marine ecosystem has recovered, but we're curious about the islands. Ashlyn and I explore an abandoned bunker near the Bravo crater. The bunker was built by the U.S. military to view the nuclear blasts. We walk in the wake of two forces that collided: the power of atomic weapons to destroy against the creative force of nature to renew and flourish. What a shock this bomb was, even to the scientists that created it. They thought it would be 4 or 5 megatons. It ended up being 15 megatons. It's climbing. We've brought a dosimeter, which measures radioactivity.
460, 500.
Spiking up, it's reading about, 530.
536. 550.
The radiation is higher than an average person is exposed to naturally in a year.
And on the boat, we were reading about 200, maybe 220. So here, just ambient air, it's like just over 400.
Wow.
There's not even a reading for that.
No, it's the bar is maxed out. I think we should get out of here.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time here.
Back at the boat, Luke is on a deep technical dive to see if he can solve the mystery of the missing male reef sharks. At 140 feet, sharks emerge from the darkness. Still, no males. So Luke and the safety divers go deeper. But now the dive is dangerous, and the nearest hospital is hundreds of miles away. An accident could be fatal. It's much harder to get an accurate shot. The water pressure at this depth puts more drag on the tagging gun. Two sharks come into range. Their air is running low, but at nearly 170 feet, Luke finds what he's been searching for: a male reef shark.
We dropped down about 150 feet where we hit a thermocline. It went from a beautiful 85-degree water, dropped down to in the 60s, so quite cold. Under that thermocline, about 168 feet, we saw the sharks show up, some very large grey reef sharks. I got a tag on a fairly large female, and then I got to tag a large male, the largest male I've seen in this area yet, and it might explain why we're not seeing them here in the shallow part of the reef. They may be hanging down under the thermocline.
Before we move to the next atoll, we've got one more dive. The wreck of the Nagato. She was the Japanese flagship during the attack on Pearl Harbor, and was brought here and used as a target in the nuclear tests.
The top is right around 90 feet. It's actually sitting on its side and pretty much hull to the surface. So be on your game, it's pretty deep, and the sharks that we find will probably be fairly territorial. Need as many sharks as we can tag here, and we'll see what we can find.
we glide over the massive propellers that powered this 725-foot warship. The ship's enormous guns have become an unintended home to colorful fish and coral. Luke gets perfect shots at 2 females. We only have 14 sharks tagged, and would like a couple more before we leave this island. We think our best chances are back at Shark Pass. A pack of gray reefs are swarming off the boat. We'll use our last tuna to lure them in. But now there are so many sharks, it's too risky for Luke to get in the water to tag them. A mix of juveniles and mature female reef sharks pick up the scent. More sharks are drawn in by the current. So far, all females, many over 4 feet. One bite, and the frenzy is on. A minute later, the fish is gone.
Coming up, the team heads to a tiny island which may hold clues to the mystery of Bikini's nuclear sharks. To discover how sharks repopulated Bikini Atoll, the team has traveled to the closest island, Rongelap Atoll, 125 miles away. There was no nuclear testing on Rongelap, but the island was showered with heavy fallout from the Castle Bravo bomb. The mission is to find out if sharks here at Rongelap helped rebuild the population at Bikini. The only way to find out is to tag a few and see if any of them swim over to Bikini. It would be a long and dangerous journey for a little reef shark.
The goal is put a little bit of bait down, because otherwise, the sharks really aren't interested. People have the sense that sharks are like killers waiting for someone to just dip a toe in the water so they can attack. That's not the case, right? So basically the point is, without the bait, it's unlikely that as many sharks will come into the region or even stay in the region.
The sharks are completely unintimidated by us, or our boat.
If you see a really big shark and we're not seeing it,
Yes.
you've got your stick, feel free to not hit yourself in the head, but bang on your tank.
Yeah.
And let us know that it's there. We could very well see some very large sharks down there right now.
That's a smoking current, man.
The current is too strong to swim against, so we get a tow to the dive site.
Let's stick together, huh?
Within minutes, we're surrounded by gray reef sharks. Luke tags shark number 15, leaving us with 5 more tags. He's trying to get another tag in, but the sharks are moving too quickly.
That was amazing. At one point I counted, there were 17 sharks. 17 sharks all around us. They were really excited by the bait. Luke got in one really good tag.
The grey reef shark is a really fascinating species. They don't like divers. They don't really sort of approach you. I found it quite hard to chase them down and tag them.
Just like at Bikini, most of the sharks at Rongelap Atoll are female. Now, sexual segregation does occur in some sharks, and it's very pronounced here in reef sharks. We're seeing a healthy population of sharks. What's amazing to me is the nuclear blasts weren't the only time the sharks were wiped out. 10 years ago, shark populations across the Marshall Islands were decimated by commercial fishing vessels. Our captain knows the history.
When I first came here, there really didn't seem to be a lot of sharks in the Marshalls, and I was wondering why. And after a bit of looking around and talking to people, I started realizing that there was a really big shark fishing industry going on here, and the Chinese were getting stuck into it really heavily.
Now, what was the shark fishing for?
For finning. I mean, there was rooftops that I found in Marjorie where they were just drying them out, and there was, 40-foot containers of shark fins coming out of the Marshalls. It's a lot of sharks to fill a 40-foot container.
Sharks grow and reproduce very slowly. And we're seeing all females. What happens when someone overfishes this population and takes out all these females? It makes the entire species vulnerable. So in 2011, the Republic of the Marshall Islands made a bold move. It established the world's largest shark sanctuary, banning commercial shark fishing within its waters. If nature restored Bikini after nuclear testing, the fishing ban helped secure that success.
It's amazing how things can recover so quickly. I think this is the last Eden.
The rebirth of the marine world here is nothing short of miraculous, but it won't survive without the sharks. Sharks are essential to the ecosystem.
Coming up, the last tag goes in,
Yes!
and the data comes back. What it reveals is shocking. Now, on the final leg of their expedition, Philippe and Ashlyn Cousteau and marine biologist Luke Tipple make the 280-mile run south to Likia Atoll in search of more sharks.
We're tagging here at Likia because everything north of here was contaminated by radiation. So in 1948, there were scientists here getting a baseline. We're going to do the same.
You want to do a giant start off the side here? Is that cool?
Over there.
Over that side? All right.
Yeah.
The reef is spectacular, with some of the most diverse and beautiful corals we've ever seen. But we only see one great reef shark. Nothing like what we saw at Bikini and Rongelap atolls. So unfortunately, it's a dive with no sharks tagged. It's the last day. We have one tag left, but now it's too close to sunset to dive safely. With so many sharks swarming at the surface, a tagging pole is our only option. So I volunteered to get it done in the few hours we've got left. Jeez. I try for hours for a perfect shot at a dorsal fin. They move fast, but the sharks never stop moving, and their skin is extremely hard to pierce.
Try putting your hands back, covering the top.
We're running out of time to get the last tag in.
And
It's not safe to be traveling out here in total darkness. This is it, right?
great reef shark, about 4.5 feet. There's a shot, take it.
Oh!
Yes! You got it!
Did I do it?
You did it! Good job.
They move fast and they turn on a dime, and so you could be thinking that your aim is perfect and all of a sudden it whips around. Oh,
That tag is in.
that tag's like really, it's really.
Yes!
Good job.
But I want to see the shark again.
With the last tag in, the Cousteau's expedition is ending. But the story isn't over. The team tagged 17 reef sharks, 15 females and 2 males. Eventually, 3 tags would fail to transmit. Now, 7 months later, the remaining 14 tagged sharks tell an amazing story. 4 sharks tagged at Bikini travel in and out of the lagoon, hugging the same reef where they were tagged. One tag signals the shark has stopped moving, a sign it may have died. 4 female sharks tagged at Rongelap migrate 20 miles to Knox Island. Other tags send a glimmer of data that suggests how sharks repopulated Bikini. Very short bursts of location data put one shark tag at Wotho Atoll, 97 miles from Bikini, and another even farther away, 275 miles at Likia Atoll. These are long and dangerous journeys for small sharks. If this data is confirmed, it changes the common belief about gray reef sharks. It shows that they are capable of traveling much longer distances than previously thought. The team may just have discovered how gray reef sharks repopulated Bikini Atoll after the nuclear blasts.
But there's other data too, and it tells a darker story. Sharks naturally move up and down in the water column, so light and temperature change continuously. But tags on 4 of the sharks begin to send uniform light and temperature readings. And they start moving west in a zigzag pattern out into deep open water. These are the tracks a longline fishing vessel would make. Data from 4 more tagged sharks show the same pattern. Something is very wrong. All of our sharks were tagged inside the world's largest shark sanctuary, established to protect sharks from commercial fishing. And now, 8 of our tags send signals that they're aboard fishing vessels. That means they were all caught illegally. So how many more sharks in the sanctuary meet the same fate? One satellite track ends in the fishing port of Bebe in the Philippines, another in the Leyte Gulf, and 2 more are traveling close together in the Philippine Sea. Yet another track ended at Apra Harbor on Guam. The shark tag itself was found lying on a beach.
This part of the story is unexpected. Nature restored Bikini, but now another kind of destruction threatens to wipe it out again.
Sharks are worth far more alive than dead. And when you degrade the environment, you benefit the few. And when you protect the environment, you benefit the many. And I choose the latter for a world. That's the kind of world that I want to pass on to my children. Our expedition to the Marshall Islands has taught us that nature is resilient, that she can recover from the worst destruction humanity can engineer, but only if we give her the chance to do so. The question is, will we?
After the filming of Nuclear Sharks was completed, our Shark Week producers had the honor of speaking with Secretary of State John Kerry about Sea Scout, the State Department's initiative to fight against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing.
Well, Sea Scout is a creative initiative that we've put together in the State Department to try to create a global enforcement mechanism for the rules of fishing. And unfortunately, we have pirate fishermen out there who are using old and banned methods of fishing, which literally strip mine the oceans. 1/3 of the world's fisheries are overfished, and if we continue to see more and more illegal fishing boats going out from one nation or another, we put at risk the very ecosystem of the ocean itself. Tagging is new to the Sea Scout program, but it's a pilot project that is absolutely worthy, and we have 6 other pilot projects that we're working on in various parts of the world. Everybody knows about Shark Week, and it's become a big thing, and that's great, because then people tune in. People are fascinated by sharks, and hopefully a lot of people get a better understanding of why they need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.